Good morning, everybody, on this beautiful day, on this beautiful site with these trees above us. It's great to be here. My name is Allan Pallay, and this is the Sunday morning service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Potsdam. I'm a member of the congregation and will be leading the service today along with our speaker. We are a congregation that welcomes all. Whether you're seeing us with spirits high or spirits low, we welcome you. Whether your beliefs tend towards atheism or theism, liberalism or conservatism, we welcome you. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whomever you love, we are glad you are with us today. Our religion, Unitarian Universalism, is built on 7 principles. These principles call us to promote a set of values that include justice, compassion, liberty, equity, democracy, and respect for the earth. In addition, our UU culture promotes the notion that wisdom can be found from many sources, with a special place held by reason and science, but also can be found in art and spiritual intuition. We also believe that we have much to learn from the great thinkers of the past, but in building the future, we are not permanently tied to any past theology or ideology. With these values in mind, we consider a wide array of topics at our various Sunday morning services, and we have a wide array of speakers, including our ministers, guest ministers, members of our congregation, and lay speakers from outside our fellowship. Carly, would you play a little music for us? Pallay. That was lovely. It kind of evokes this environment, that music. Um, our speaker today and co-leader, Terry Dixon, is a man of many dimensions. He is a very active member of Mainline Unitarian Church, where he served on the Board of Trustees, as chair of the worship committee, and in various other roles. He is a lawyer by profession, specializing in intellectual property, with degrees from Trinity College, Dublin, and Columbia University Law School. He is the father of 2 college-age daughters. In addition, he finds time to be a runner. He ran in New York City and other marathons. To practice meditation, he is a member of the Meditation Steering Committee at Mainline UU, and more. So I am glad we have a man with this range of experience and accomplishment as our speaker today. Terry.
Thank you, Allan. Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. Just hope I can live up to that introduction. So thank you, Allan. Thank you so much. I'm delighted and honored and delighted to be here with you. I want to thank Allan and obviously Reverend Dave and Reverend Kerry for inviting me, and I really appreciate this opportunity to share this worship with you. And I thank all of you for being here. I know obviously on a magnificent day like this we have so many choices what we could do with our morning, so I'm delighted that you chose to come here and that we can worship together. Mary, if I could invite you up to light the chalice. And as we light this chalice, may we remember our nobler qualities and highest aspirations. May we appreciate that we are not isolated beings. Instead, we are inherently and profoundly connected through mystery to the universe and to all other beings. May this flame be a symbol of our recognition of our interbeing. And so, may we be inspired to bring our gifts of love, compassion, and service to all humanity and to the biosphere as a whole. May it be so. And now let's join, if we can, in our first hymn. We won't be singing today because of the COVID restrictions, but Carly will play the hymn, and if you want to follow along in your hymnals, please feel free. It's hymn number 127, Can I See Another's Woe?
We are a caring community with an interest in the joys and concerns of our members and friends. Anyone who has a joy or concern they would like to share, please come up to the microphone, and please begin by telling us your name.
I'm Mary. Slight little concern, we forgot announcements. So, I want to thank, but I do want to thank Mrs. Price, Miss Kate, for sticking around after doing the garden on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday, and helping me do some work inside, getting prepared, cleaned up. And while we were at it, we found a whole bunch of stuff. We've got a couple of garden implements, some painter's trays, and some milk crates. We do not know who most of this stuff belongs to. So if it is yours, pretty please take it home. If it is not yours and we still see it next week, anybody who wants it can take it home. And if we still see it week after next, I have no idea.
Yes, this can be a combination, joys and concerns and announcements.
Well, I'm joyful about what I'm about to announce. How's that? So actually I am. I'm very pleased to announce, even though today is a beautiful day, we will be moving our services inside the sanctuary on October 3rd. So not next Sunday, but the Sunday after. We may do it a bit early if we're still planning to do outside next Sunday. If it rains, we may just move in a little early. It'll be our test run. But I think it's important for me to share, we are a caring community, and we are a community. So for us to move inside, we are going to have some requirements for people. The first of which is we are going to require masks. We will require social distancing. And again, in part of us being a greater caring community, in order to protect those who are at risk, and right now the biggest population in our community are the children, we have the expectation that people who can be immunized will be immunized. We're going to ask that people who feel sick, please do not show up. Again, these are the common sense things, but know that even if we move inside, you can still be part of us via technology. That will always be an option for us. So hopefully people will be very excited about this. I will let you know coffee hour, however, will be moved outside. That will continue to remain outside. So even as the weather gets colder, bring your coats. We'll socialize outside, and hopefully we'll have hot food. Or as I had said yesterday at the board meeting, we'll have flasks, put in your coffee, warm you up, it's all you. So anyway, I actually am very excited about that, and I think it's a long time coming. The board will continue to be looking at the case rates, so we do still reserve the right. We may say we can't do this anymore, but we are going to move forward with that, so hopefully we'll see everybody inside without the bugs. So, thank you.
This is a joy or if it's an announcement, but redistricting is happening. It's taking place, and for the first time in Pennsylvania history, the Legislative Reapportionment Commission and the State Government Committee are asking for citizen input. So it's actually kind of critical that we respond, because otherwise we don't have a way to go back and say, I feel disenfranchised by this method. I think they're doing their best, believe it or not. And we made a lot of noise. You guys did too, here. And they listened. And I think you should really take a bow. It's not over yet. We don't know if they're going to listen and put into effect what we're asking, but the Fair Districts PA group is working very hard to model for the legislature how redistricting could be done with citizen input by taking diverse ideas or sort of conflicting interests and trying to create a map that represents people. So if you are interested in having a community conversation with the rest of Pottstown, we were planning to do it next week or the week after, and it's sort of imploded because we haven't heard back from enough people in the Pottstown area. So we're thinking now to just concentrate on Reading, but I implore you, if you have any interest at all, please be in touch with me or with the Fair Districts folks, and we'll get something lined up. I mean, we're sort of beating the bushes now for people, groups to get together and to talk about it and submit testimony. It's not that hard. It can only be a couple of sentences, but it's really important to do something. And I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Good morning. I have three concerns, a mixed joy and concern, and a joy. So the three concerns rapidly are elections are taking place in Russia. Once again, the opposition has been suppressed, so it will not be a fair election, but what have we to expect from Vladimir Putin? Number two, I fear for, well, many people's rights, but women's rights in particular in Afghanistan. Women are losing what they have in many, many forms, so we can only hope and pray for some clarity in the Taliban's eyes. Number three, as you may be aware, the Republicans have thrown a dart at the Democrats, saying that we will allow the country to go into default if you move ahead with your very expensive plans and the many bills you have. So that'll be some interesting politics coming up in the very near future. Let's hope for a democratic system to find a way forward. My joy and concern. My concern is that Terry's an attorney. But my joy is that he probably is a compassionate attorney in whatever element of law he practices. Where they say first shoot all the lawyers. Anyway, and my joy is that here's a leaf, and those of us who are outside the realm of the tent have been showered by these leaves. And it's a joy because it reminds us that this week will be the equinox as we officially move into the true fall season. And this is up Allan's alley, but so the seasons change, and that's joy.
Thank you. Well, I just want to emphasize the joy that Linda mentioned, that we will start to go inside, and we'll have to monitor as time goes by, but we're at least beginning next week to be inside.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks. Sorry.
Unless it rains.
Okay. The financial generosity of our members and friends has kept us going during this COVID period. While our country has made great progress in the fight against COVID, we are still struggling against this tenacious virus. Nevertheless, things are getting better at UUFFP. Thanks to our technology team and helpers, we have established a system to conduct services outside at our beautiful fellowship site. A special thanks goes to Rick and Cassie Dusky and Chris Barnhouse. And we are preparing our building for indoor services. We do offertories to make sure we keep these good things going. So now we will pass the basket. Now we will hear hymn number 34, Thou I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Hymn number 34.
Thank you so much, Carly. It's beautiful. As Allan noted at the beginning of our service, our living faith recognizes that no one religious tradition or philosophy has all the answers, or a monopoly on the truth. And we certainly don't consider revelation to be closed. Rather, we recognize that these wisdom traditions represent the efforts of human beings at various times and in different places and cultures to try to make sense of and come to terms with the mysteries facing them. They are attempts to answer the fundamental question of what it means to be a human being in this cosmos. And that process continues. So rather than hewing to dogma or one particular religious text, as Allan said, we draw from many sources, recognizing that collectively the different traditions may point to higher, more universal truths to help us answer the question for ourselves. And when we look at the parallels in those wisdom traditions, there are some common themes that do speak to the core of our humanity. For example, the words to the hymn that we just heard are inspired by chapter 13 of St. Paul's first epistle to the Corinthians. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, I am become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. And now abideth faith, hope, and charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Now, as Reverend Carey would tell us, if she were here, the Greek word that's used in this passage that is typically translated rather imperfectly as charity or love is agape. And it's important to understand that agape is different from other concepts of love, such as romantic love or brotherly love. Agape is an unlimited, pure, and unconditional love. An altruistic love, given for its own sake and directed to all of humanity, or perhaps even all of creation. So in that sense, it might be called a divine or eternal love. And certainly for a theist, agape is the covenant love originating from God to humans, as well as the reciprocal love that humans should have for God, and that must necessarily be extended to one's fellow human beings and even all of creation. This concept of God's great love for the world and the obligation of humans to reflect that love back to God and towards other people is obviously central to both Christian and Jewish traditions. Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And then in the parable of the Good Samaritan and in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus made clear that we have a divine duty to extend compassion and generosity to strangers, and even to love your enemies. You have heard it was said, You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. And pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. And Jesus goes on to stress that showing love and compassion to one's fellow human beings is the direct equivalent of loving God himself. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, Come you, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. But this concept of reflecting God's ultimate love by showing love and kindness is also central to many other faith traditions. Indeed, many theologians have noted that agape, and then avoiding harm to others, developing empathy and compassion, and alleviating human suffering, seem to be universal spiritual needs that are reflected in virtually every religion. For example, Sadi, the Persian Muslim poet, wrote, The descendants of Adam are members of one whole, for from the moment of creation they are made of a single substance. If the hands of fate cause pain in a single member, the other members will lose their tranquility and peace. If thou art not saddened by the affliction of others, thou art not worthy to be called human. And similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, the most famous of the Hindu texts, we read, Those devotees are very dear to me, who are free from malice towards all living beings, who are friendly and compassionate towards all. They are free from attachment to possessions and egotism, equipoised in happiness and distress, and ever forgiving. They are ever contented, steadily united with me in devotion, self-controlled, firm in conviction, and dedicated to me in mind and intellect. And then in other spiritual traditions, it is clear that acting with respect, humility, compassion, and altruism to other humans is paramount. For example, again in Confucianism, ren, or benevolence or humaneness, is the most important of the Wu Chang, the 5 constant virtues. It is considered the essence of what it means to be human, as endowed by heaven, and also is also the means by which a person may act according to the principle of heaven, the Li Dao, and to become one with it. So, for example, the doctrine on the mean states, when you cultivate to the utmost the principles of your nature and exercise them on the principle of reciprocity, you are not far from the way. What you do not like when done to you, do not do to others. There are 4 things in the path of the profound person, none of which I have yet attained. To serve my father, as I would expect my son to serve me. To serve my ruler, as I would expect my ministers to serve me. To serve my elder brother, as I would expect my younger brothers to serve me. To be the first to treat my friends, as I would expect them to treat me. But other than perhaps Christ, the ultimate expression of selflessness, compassion, and the desire to alleviate the suffering of human beings, indeed all sentient beings, is the bodhisattva in the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism. Now, in this tradition, a bodhisattva is a virtuous being who has a spontaneous wish to attain enlightenment, not just for themselves, but for the sake of all other sentient beings. This involves not only deeply understanding and transcending the illusion of the separate self, but also to work to exemplify the 4 immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. And the ultimate compassion of a bodhisattva is that upon reaching enlightenment, the bodhisattva intentionally defers their entrance into nirvana in order to devote all their power to assist other suffering beings. As it says in The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, strive at first to meditate upon the sameness of yourself and others. In joy and sorrow all are equal. Thus be a guardian of all, as of yourself. The hand and other limbs are many and distinct, but all are one, the body to be kept and guarded. Likewise, different things in their joys and sorrow are like me, all one in wanting happiness. The pain of mine does not afflict or cause discomfort to another's body, and yet this pain is hard for me to bear, because I cling, and I take it for my own. And other beings' pain I do not feel, and yet because I take them for myself, their suffering is mine, and therefore hard to bear. And therefore I dispel the pain of others, for it is simply pain just like mine own. And others I will simply aid and benefit, for they are living beings, like my body. Since I and other beings, both in wanting happiness, are equal and alike, what difference is there to distinguish us, that I should strive to have my bliss alone? Now, of course, these principles of the golden rule, love thy neighbor, and this desire to alleviate the sufferings of others, obviously are certainly not limited to religious thought. For example, they provide the ethical underpinnings for utilitarianism, as espoused by Jeremy Bentham and others, and as well as the applied ethical philosophy of contemporary thinkers like Peter Singer. And the sense that we are all one, part of a greater whole, lies at the heart of John Donne's famous poem. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Indeed, the inherent oneness and humanity, compassion, agape, at least if you divorce it from its religious connotations, and the power and necessity of altruism and human kindness to solve the world's problems are also intrinsic to humanism. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, although he is obviously profoundly an atheist and proudly so, has acknowledged as much. We have been brought up to think that we have to obey the laws of the jungle, eat or be eaten. We are ruthless in our competitiveness. we have downplayed the fact that actually our created nature is that we were made for a complementarity. We have been dehumanized and abased. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, we must learn to live together as sisters and brothers, or we will perish together as fools. You don't have to have scriptural or religious teachings. It's just the truth. You can't survive on your own. If you say you're going to be totally selfish, in next to no time the person who is totally selfish goes under. You need other people in order to be human. That's why when they want to punish you, they put you in solitary confinement. Because you can't flourish without other human beings. They give you things you cannot give yourself, no matter how much money you have. And so we speak of Ubuntu. A person is a person through other persons. Now, as you may know, Ubuntu is a humanist philosophy that originated in Southern Africa. It derives from the Zulu word for humanity. And as President Obama said at the funeral of Nelson Mandela, Ubuntu is premised on a recognition that we are all bound together in ways that are invisible to the eye, that there is a oneness in humanity, that we achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around us. So why are these three C's, compassion, charity, and community, so ubiquitous in spiritual and humanist traditions? Well, I suggest it's because these principles acknowledge a basic human truth. Despite what we've been taught, life is not, or at least should not be, a zero-sum game. Instead, compassionate concern for others is deeply instinctual in humans, even if we certainly don't always live up to that ideal. We are evolutionarily hardwired to connect with and care for other people, to be compassionate. What all these wisdom traditions are teaching us is that human beings are fundamentally social animals. And if we are to survive and flourish as a species, we must connect with and be compassionate and loving towards other humans, and by extension, the entire biosphere. And that if we neglect this fundamental law of nature, there will be negative consequences. In other words, as Darwin has taught us, evolution involves the survival of the fittest. But fitness is more than just strength and power and the ability to win individually. It is more sophisticated and nuanced than that. Human evolution also involves social adaptability, cooperation, and reciprocal altruism, which in turn necessitates love, compassion, and generosity towards others. In short, humans need to be loving to survive, or at least to thrive as a species. And increasingly, evolutionary biology is bearing this out. Modern science is qualifying and tempering the traditional idea that competition alone is the primary engine of evolution. Biologists are showing that the human superpower is cooperation, and that is what leads to flourishing groups, and ultimately to the flourishing of our species. And that interconnectedness, altruism, compassion, love, generosity, etc., are essential to facilitating such cooperation. Scientists are increasingly accepting that symbiogenesis, becoming by living together, is key to various aspects of evolution. And because humans are profoundly social animals, our evolution also involves what we might call social symbiogenesis through networking, cooperation, and collaboration. Indeed, Dr. John Barr, a leading expert on the science of the unconscious, contends that cooperation is one of three innate, if maybe unconscious most of the time, human goals, along with the basic motivations to survive and reproduce. He argues that cooperation is a deeply evolutionary drive that exists from our earliest development. And nor is social symbiosis unique to humans. Professor Suzanne Simard has proven that trees in forests communicate, collaborate, and share resources through complicated biochemical networks. And as an aside, if you haven't read it, I would strongly encourage you to read her new book, Finding the Mother Tree, Discovering the Wisdom of the Forest. Or at very least, I would suggest you listen to the interview that she gave with Krista Tippett on the On Being podcast last week. It's really fascinating. Professor Simard has established that forests operate as a single complex organism. Just like humans, forests are wired for wisdom and care. In particular, mature trees, mother trees, as she calls them, are the primary nodes of these underground networks and play essential roles in feeding, sustaining, and regenerating the forest. The mother trees, by parenting and eldering through various modes of mutuality, reciprocity, and collaboration, sustain the vitality of the forest. And I think her concept of compassionate mother trees is a good one. Indeed, the biblical Hebrew word for compassion, rachamin, derives from rechem, the word for womb. And we know that maternal compassion is critical to our early development, and not just to feed us and keep us safe from physical harm. For example, the pediatric neurologist Dr. Tali Baram has shown that a mother's compassionate caress triggers activity that improves cognition and increases tolerance to stress in her developing baby's brain. And when we act compassionately or with generosity to others, we release oxytocin, the same pleasure hormone that is released during sex, childbirth, and breastfeeding. Indeed, in many ways, we can see compassion as an expansion and the societal expression of a basic maternal instinct that is essential to our survival and maturation as a species. So, there is strong scientific evidence that we come factory equipped, whether by God or nature, for compassion, charity, and community. But if so, what can we do to enhance those qualities? Well, first, as the old Carnegie Hall joke goes, practice, practice, practice. And there are plenty of meditations and other spiritual practices that can increase our capacity for compassion, love, and generosity. And in a few minutes we will do one of those meditations. But I also think that Buddhist teachings can guide us here. As the Buddha taught, the teachings, like a bird, need two wings to fly, both wisdom and compassion. Both wings are essential and work together to create enlightenment. Wisdom facilitates and enhances compassion. Compassion facilitates and enhances wisdom. You might say it's a virtuous cycle. And the most essential insight of Buddhism is that much of our suffering is caused by our attachment to our ego and the false idea of a separate self. If we can come to realize the truth of non-duality or emptiness, the understanding that neither we nor anything else has a separate self, then we can transcend that suffering. But recognition of our interconnectedness with all other beings, our interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh calls it, naturally causes us to have compassion for those other beings as well. So as the Dalai Lama has written, genuine compassion must have both wisdom and loving kindness. That is to say, one must understand the nature of the suffering from which we wish to free others. That is wisdom. And we must experience deep intimacy and empathy with other sentient beings. That is loving kindness. And Buddhism also teaches that the four immeasurables, the virtues of compassion, loving kindness, empathetic joy, and equanimity, are inherently connected and and work together to enhance each other. This is another virtuous cycle. So to build up our compassion and loving kindness, we also need to work on developing greater empathetic joy, that is, genuine joy at the happiness of others, and greater equanimity. One way to create greater equanimity is through reframing or changing our perspective on life. The way you see the world and the meaning you give to what you witness changes the way you feel. As Daniel Goleman has said, reframing can be the first step of a spiritual and neural journey that results in more and more equanimity and our default state being increasingly more joyful. Now, one way to reframe is to adopt more of a God's eye perspective, or perhaps Buddha mind, but one certainly does not have to believe in God to experience a mind-altering shift in perspective. For example, the so-called overview effect that astronauts frequently experience when viewing the planet Earth from space. This is the moon rising view, or the Earth rising view that we, I think, are all familiar with. That is also a very good example of a powerful humanist paradigm shift. So, with all of that in mind, let's practice some loving kindness to nurture a deeper sense of compassion. I invite you to put down anything you may be holding in your hands. Sit comfortably in your chair with your feet firmly on the earth, your back straight, and if you wish, gently close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Then another. And another. Become aware of your body as you sit in the chair. Sense yourself seated amidst this mystery of human life. Breathe in gently and naturally. Don't try to change your breathing in any way. Just breathe naturally. And simply notice each breath. And now, I invite you to place your hand on your chest and to think of somebody you love very much, perhaps a relative or a close friend. Try to either see their face in your mind's eye or sense their presence. Notice how your heart feels when you think of them. Simply feel whatever arises. If you feel warmth, tenderness, or affection, stay with those feelings. If not, just stay with the thoughts of your loved one. Relax into your thoughts or feelings. And now, let phrases of good wishes for that loved one come into your mind. You might silently say the following phrases. May you be safe and protected. May you be healthy and strong. May you be truly happy and at ease. May you be free from suffering. Breathe in again. And as you breathe out, imagine a warm light coming from the center of your heart, carrying your love to your loved one and bringing them peace, joy. Rejoice in the thought of your loved one's happiness. when this loved one was having a difficult time. Notice what it feels like to experience their pain. Does your heart ache? Do you have a feeling of unease in your stomach? Or perhaps a desire to help? There's no need to do anything. Simply notice the feelings. Stay with them. And once again, silently offer the following phrases. May you be safe and protected. May you be healthy and strong. May you be truly happy and at ease. May you be free from suffering. And again, imagine a warm light emerging from your heart and touching your loved one, easing their suffering. And now, let's turn that loving kindness inward. After all, self-compassion, extending loving kindness to yourself, is essential in cultivating compassion for others. As the Dalai Lama has said, if you don't have genuine love and kindness for yourself, how can you extend those feelings to others? So with your hands still on your heart, think of a time when you experienced difficulty and suffering. Perhaps it was when you were a child, or later in life, or perhaps even now. Sense feelings of warmth, tenderness, and caring towards yourself. Reflect that just like all people, you want to be happy and free of suffering. And silently offer these phrases to yourself. May I be safe and protected. May I be healthy and strong. May I be truly happy and at ease. May I be free from suffering. And now I invite you to bring someone you do not have strong feelings for one way or the other. Somebody you really neither like or dislike. Perhaps it's an acquaintance or somebody you see from time to time at work or at the store or even here at the congregation. Again, reflect on the fact that just like all people, this person wants to be happy and free of suffering. Allow your heart to feel warmth, tenderness, and caring for this person as well. And silently offer them loving kindness. May you be safe and protected. May you be healthy and strong. May you be truly happy and at ease. May you be free from suffering. And now, let's reflect that everyone on the planet suffers because of their ego, their sense of self, and their attachments. But that everyone also shares a fundamental desire to be happy and free of suffering. So this time, bring to mind someone with whom you have a difficult relationship, or perhaps you even actively dislike. Sometimes family members or even politicians might come to mind. And silently repeat these phrases for the benefit of that person. May you be safe and protected. May you be healthy and strong. May you be truly happy and at ease. May you be free from suffering. And as you continue to breathe in and out, once again, imagine a warm light coming from your heart and radiating out to that person. Now I appreciate that this one may be difficult for some of us. Perhaps this is just a step too far at the moment. That's okay. If necessary, you can simply reflect on your intention to be able to extend loving kindness to that person in the future. Just keep breathing into that intention. And finally, I invite you to gently open your eyes. Look around this space. And with your hands still on your heart, silently offer your loving kindness to everyone around you. Think of the warm light coming from your heart as a beacon, radiating around your community, this state, this country, and to people all around the world, and ultimately to all beings everywhere. And silently, let us say, may all beings, near and far, all beings, old and young, all beings human and non-human, be held in profound loving kindness. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings be healthy and strong. May all beings be truly happy and at ease. May all beings be free from suffering. And may it be so. And now, in that spirit, let's join in our final hymn. Again, we won't sing it, but it is one of our all-time favorites, as you use, Spirit of Life. Please rise in spirit at least, and if you wish to follow along in the words in the book, please do so. Alright, thank you. So in closing, I leave you with these words by the Irish writer and mystic, John O'Donoghue, from his poem Bannacht, which means blessing in Irish. And for me this encapsulates his great gentle love, his compassion, and his wonderful generosity of spirit. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders, stumble, may the clay dance developed. And when your eyes freeze behind the grey window, the ghost of loss gets you to you. May a flock of colours, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. And the canvas frays in the currach of thought, and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you. May there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so, may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your love. And so if we can extinguish the chalice with these words from Reverend Mark Bellatini. Go in peace. Live simply, gently, and at home in yourselves. Act justly. Speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Now, Carly, if you could play a postlude, and then if we could all afterwards thank Carly for her great gifts and blessing us. Thank you.
join